Welcome, dear friend, to Luminous Uplift, a quiet place where wonder and serenity meet, and where the gentle voice of science becomes a lullaby for your curious soul. We are so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps your day was long, filled with noise and motion and 1,000 small demands. Perhaps your mind is still humming with the echoes of everything you carried. That is all right. You are here now, and this is your moment to set it all down, to breathe slowly, and to let something beautiful wash over you like a tide rolling softly onto shore. Here at Luminous Uplift, we take peaceful journeys into the natural world, drifting through its most extraordinary stories with gentleness and awe. Tonight, we are slipping beneath the surface of the ocean, gliding through cool, shimmering waters where coral sways like a dream and bioluminescent light pulses in the deep. We are going in search of one of nature's most astonishing creatures, the octopus, a being of 8 graceful arms, ancient wisdom, and quiet, breathtaking intelligence. If these soft explorations bring you peace, we warmly invite you to like this video and subscribe, so you may always find your way back to this gentle space whenever rest is what you need. Now, let's begin our journey into the luminous, mysterious world of the octopus. Close your eyes for a moment if you like. Let your breathing slow. Let the weight of the day settle into whatever surface is holding you right now. And imagine, just gently imagine, that you are floating. Not in any particular water, not in any particular time, but somewhere between wakefulness and the deep. Suspended in that soft and borderless place where the mind begins to loosen its grip on the ordinary world. This is a good place to begin a story about octopuses, because octopuses, more than almost any other creature on this earth, seem to belong to that in-between space. They are real, astonishingly real, documented and studied, and held in careful hands by marine biologists the world over. And yet they feel like something conjured from the imagination of a universe that was in a particularly creative mood. They feel ancient in the way that deep water feels ancient, in the way that stone feels ancient, in the way that the night sky feels ancient when you look up at it long enough that the stars seem less like points of light and more like a kind of memory. And ancient is exactly what they are. To understand where the octopus sits in the great branching tree of life, you have to be willing to let your sense of time go very soft and very wide. Human beings are not naturally good at understanding deep time. We feel at home in years and decades, in the occasional century if we are thinking about history. We stretch ourselves to think about thousands of years, about ancient civilizations and the long, slow drift of languages across continents. But the story of the octopus asks us to reach much further than that, to reach down into a darkness so old that the very shapes of the continents were different, that the atmosphere tasted different, that the oceans were populated by creatures so strange we barely have names for them, creatures that existed and flourished and vanished long before anything with a backbone had learned to crawl onto land. The octopus belongs to a group of animals called mollusks, and if that word sounds familiar, it should, because mollusks are everywhere. They are on your dinner plate in the form of clams and mussels and scallops. They are in the garden, leaving their silver trails across the leaves in the early morning. They are on the shoreline, tucked into their spiral shells, waiting for the tide to come back in. Snails are mollusks. Slugs are mollusks. Oysters are mollusks. The humble clam, sitting quietly in its hinged shell at the bottom of a tidal flat, is more closely related to the octopus than any fish is, more closely related than any shark or salmon or seahorse. This is one of those beautiful, slightly disorienting facts that science occasionally hands us, the kind that makes you look at the world sideways for a moment, that makes you realize the categories we carry in our heads are our own inventions, convenient and useful but not always true to the deep reality underneath. When we look at a clam, we see something simple, something still, something that seems barely more animate than a stone, a small hinged thing that opens and closes with the tides, filtering water, going about its slow and patient life without any apparent interiority. When we look at an octopus, we see something that looks back, something that watches us from across the tank, with what feels unmistakably like curiosity, like assessment, like the particular quality of attention that we associate with minds. And yet they share a common heritage. These two creatures, they are chapters in the same very old story, written in the same ancient biological language, shaped by the same fundamental body plan that evolution discovered hundreds of millions of years ago and found so useful that it kept returning to it, kept refining it, kept finding new things to do with it. The mollusks as a group are extraordinarily old. Their origins trace back to the Cambrian period, and perhaps even before, to a time when the Earth's oceans were just beginning their great experiment with complex animal life, when the basic blueprints for bodies were still being drawn up and tested and revised. From that ancient beginning, the mollusks spread and diversified into an astonishing range of forms, and among those forms, one lineage took a particularly dramatic turn. These were the cephalopods, whose name comes from the Greek words for head and foot, because in these animals, the muscular foot that most mollusks use to creep along the seafloor had been transformed, reimagined, wrapped around the head and divided into arms and tentacles reaching outward into the water. The cephalopods include the nautilus, with its beautiful spiral shell still carrying echoes of that ancient mollusk heritage. They include the squid, long and streamlined and fast. They include the cuttlefish, with its rippling fins and its extraordinary skin. And they include the octopus, the most transformed of all, the one that seems to have shed the most of its ancestral past in pursuit of something new. The octopus lineage, as best as paleontologists and molecular biologists can determine, diverged from the other cephalopods roughly 296 million years ago. Say that number quietly to yourself if you like. 296 million years. The dinosaurs had not yet appeared. The supercontinent of Pangaea was still assembling itself, the great land masses of the Earth drifting slowly into their temporary embrace. The ancestors of the mammals were small and strange, more like lizards than anything we would recognize as our own kind. The world was in the middle of what geologists call the Carboniferous period, a time of vast, shallow seas and towering forests, and an atmosphere so rich in oxygen that insects could grow to sizes that seem impossible today. Dragonflies with wingspans wider than your outstretched hand, millipedes as long as your arm. Into this ancient world, the ancestors of the octopus were already swimming, already soft and searching, already beginning the long, slow journey toward becoming what they are today. And what they chose to become, across all those millions of years, is something extraordinary in its simplicity and its strangeness both at once. The octopus has no hard skeleton. There are no bones inside that soft body, no rigid framework, no internal architecture of calcium and mineral. Where other mollusks kept their shells, growing them outward or inward, using them as armor and as home, the octopus let the shell go almost entirely. Some species retain a small internal structure called a gladius, a remnant of that ancient shell, reduced now to something like a thin, transparent sliver, a ghostly echo of what was once a more substantial inheritance. But for the most part, the octopus has chosen softness, has chosen the strange freedom of a body with no fixed shape, a body that can pour itself through any opening large enough to admit its beak, which is the only truly hard part, the only thing that cannot compress or reshape itself to fit whatever gap or crevice the octopus needs to explore. This is a choice that carries consequences, of course. A soft body is a vulnerable body, exposed to every predator in ways that a shelled or armored creature is not. And yet the octopus has not only survived but flourished, spreading across every ocean on this earth, from the sunlit shallow reefs of the tropics to the crushing darkness of the deep sea, from the rocky tide pools of temperate coasts to the vast open water of the Middle Ocean. There are more than 300 known species of octopus distributed across this planet's waters, each one a slightly different answer to the question of what it means to be an octopus, each one shaped by its particular corner of the ocean into something distinctive and local and precisely adapted to its world. And this number, 300 species, is almost certainly an undercount, because the ocean is large and our knowledge of it is still so incomplete, still so full of dark corners where creatures go about their lives entirely unobserved by human eyes. To think about the octopus's relationship to the rest of animal life is to think about one of the most profound stories in all of biology, which is the story of how minds came to be. When we trace the octopus's lineage back far enough, back past those cephalopod ancestors, back past the early mollusks, back into the Cambrian and beyond, we eventually arrive at a point where the lineage of the octopus and the lineage of every vertebrate animal, every fish and frog and bird and mammal and human being reading these words in a warm bed tonight, we arrive at the point where those two lineages last shared a common ancestor. And that point is more than 500 million years ago. 500 million years of separate evolution. 500 million years of different pressures and different environments and different experiments and different solutions. 500 million years during which the vertebrate line developed its particular approach to building a nervous system and a brain, and the cephalopod line developed its own approach, independently from different raw materials, under different constraints, heading toward a similar destination by an entirely different road. This is what biologists call convergent evolution, the phenomenon by which two lineages, separated by enormous stretches of time and biological distance, arrive at similar solutions to similar problems. The octopus has a complex brain. It has something that looks, to anyone who spends time with octopuses, very much like curiosity and memory and personality and problem-solving ability. It has neurons distributed not only in its central brain, but throughout its arms, so that each arm has a kind of local intelligence, a capacity for semi-independent action and sensation and response. It has eyes that are in some structural ways remarkably similar to vertebrate eyes, though they too evolved independently. Another case of convergence, another instance of the universe finding the same elegant solution twice. All of this complexity, all of this neural architecture arose not because it was inherited from some common intelligent ancestor, but because intelligence, or something like it, something that functions like it and serves some of the same purposes, turns out to be a useful thing to have, useful enough that evolution found its way toward it more than once, along more than one path, in more than one branch of the vast and ancient tree. There is something deeply comforting about this, if you let yourself feel it. The idea that minds are not accidents, not anomalies, not isolated sparks in an otherwise dark universe, but something that the living world tends toward, something that emerges when the conditions are right and the pressures are sufficient and the time is long enough. The octopus did not need us to invent its intelligence. It did not need our particular vertebrate heritage or our particular evolutionary history. It found its own way to complexity, following its own ancient path through the deep time of the ocean, and arrived at something that can look back at us across a glass tank with what feels unmistakably like recognition. Let that settle for a moment, like sediment drifting slowly down through still water. The octopus has been here, in one form or another, for longer than we can easily imagine. It has watched in its ancestral way through the great dying events that have periodically swept the earth clean, through the rising and falling of sea levels, through the slow drift of continents, through ice ages and warm periods, and the gradual oxygenation of the deep ocean. It has persisted through all of it, soft and adaptable and endlessly inventive, finding new ways to live in whatever world the Earth decided to become next. And through all of that time, it carried no hard record of its own history, left no easily fossilized bones behind, wrote nothing down in stone. Its history lives in its genes and in the scattered, precious fossils of its shelled ancestors, in the careful detective work of scientists who have spent their careers learning to read the deep past from the faintest of traces. Close your eyes a little more. If they are still open, let the light go. Let the weight go. Think about 500 million years the way you might think about the ocean itself, not as a number to be understood, but as a presence to be felt. Something vast and dark and full of unimaginable things, something that holds you gently even when you cannot see the bottom, even when you cannot see the other shore. And somewhere in those ancient warm seas, long before the first dinosaur drew breath, a small soft creature began to dream in 8 arms. Drifting slowly through water the color of, and somewhere in those ancient warm seas, long before the first dinosaur drew breath, a small soft creature began to dream in 8 arms, drifting slowly through water the color of pale jade and memory, and that creature was the ancestor of the octopus, already extraordinary, already impossibly strange, already wrapped in a skin that could whisper and shimmer and speak in ways no other living thing had yet imagined. Let us settle now into that strangeness. Let us drift down into it the way a stone drifts slowly through still water, turning gently, catching light, taking its time. Because the body of an octopus is not something to be rushed past. It is something to be visited slowly, the way you might visit a cathedral at dusk, moving quietly through its chambers, letting the light fall on you in colors you did not expect. Begin, if you will, with the softness of it. The octopus has no bones. Not in the way we think of bones, those hard white scaffolding rods that hold us upright, that give us our shape, that click and creak when we stretch in the morning. The octopus has almost none of that. No skeleton beneath the skin, no rigid frame to contain it, no cage of ribs protecting a beating heart. There is only one small hard structure in the entire body of an octopus, and that is its beak. A tiny curved beak made of chitin, the same material that makes the shell of a beetle or the wing of a moth, tucked at the center of its body where all 8 arms meet, like the hub of a wheel, like the quiet still point around which everything else turns. That beak is the single solid thing the octopus carries through the world. And here's what that means, what that extraordinary bonelessness means in practice. In the living, breathing world of tides and rocks and narrow crevices in coral and stone, it means the octopus can go almost anywhere. It means the body, soft and fluid and endlessly accommodating, can compress and pour itself into any opening that is larger than the beak. Any gap wider than that small hard curve of chitin becomes a door the octopus can pass through. A crack in a rock that seems impossibly thin. a jar with a loosened lid, a space between two stones that no creature with a spine could navigate. The octopus simply flows through it, the way water finds its way through the tiniest fracture in the earth, patient and inevitable and completely, serenely unhurried. This bonelessness gives the octopus a particular quality of movement that is unlike anything else in the ocean. When you watch an octopus move, if you have ever had the quiet privilege of watching one in an aquarium or in the shallow water of a tide pool, you might notice that it moves the way a thought moves, not in a straight line exactly, not with the mechanical certainty of a fish or a crab, but fluidly, with constant small adjustments, with a quality of presence that seems almost contemplative. The body pulses gently. The arms trail and curl and reach. The whole creature seems to be thinking as it moves, and this, it turns out, is almost literally true, but we will come to that in a moment. First, the arms. There are 8 of them, and they are not merely limbs in the way that our arms or legs are limbs. They are not simply extensions of a central will, simple tools at the disposal of a commanding brain. They are something far more extraordinary than that. Each arm is a world unto itself. Each arm contains its own dense concentration of neurons, its own local intelligence, its own capacity to sense and respond and act. If you were to imagine the human body rearranged so that most of our thinking happened not in the brain behind our eyes, but in our hands, scattered through our fingers and our palms and our wrists, you might begin to approach what it is to be an octopus. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons live not in its central brain, not in that small ring of neural tissue wrapped around its esophagus and the mantle, but in the arms themselves. 2/3. Imagine for a moment what that means. Imagine that the intelligence, the awareness, the sensing and processing and responding is distributed through the entire body, flowering out into 8 long muscular limbs, each one humming with its own quiet mind. An octopus arm can act semi-independently. It can solve problems without waiting for instruction from the central brain. When an octopus reaches into a crevice to find a crab hidden there in the dark, where no eye can see, the arm does not need to send a message all the way back to headquarters and wait for orders. The arm simply knows. It tastes the water. It feels the texture of the rock. It navigates the darkness by touch and by chemistry, making its small decisions in the moment, locally, efficiently, with a kind of distributed grace. And perhaps most remarkably, perhaps most wonderfully strange, an octopus arm that has been severed from the body will continue to respond to stimuli for up to an hour. It will recoil from harm. It will reach toward food. It will, in its diminished way, continue to act on the information its suckers are giving it, because the intelligence was never entirely located elsewhere to begin with. The arm carries something of its own mind with it, wherever it goes. Those suckers, let us linger on the suckers for a moment, because they deserve their own quiet reverence. An octopus has hundreds of suckers distributed along its arms, arranged in rows, each one a small round disc that can grip and release and taste and feel all at once. Each sucker contains chemoreceptors of extraordinary sensitivity. We are talking about a sensory apparatus so refined, so delicate in its calibration, that it can detect a single molecule of a substance dissolved in seawater. A single molecule, not a drop, not a trace, not a faint suggestion. A single molecule drifting through the vast cold dark of the ocean is enough for the sucker of an octopus to register, to read, to begin interpreting. Think about what it would mean to taste the world at that resolution. To press your fingertips to a stone and know not just that it is cold and smooth, but to read in it the chemical story of everything that has touched it, everything that has moved through the water nearby, every creature that has passed, every trace of salt and mineral and life that lingers in the current. The octopus lives in a world of almost incomprehensible sensory richness, a world painted not just in color and shape and light, but in the finest possible gradations of chemistry, in the molecular signatures of everything that exists. And then the skin. Oh, the skin. If the arms are the thinking parts, the sensing parts, the reaching and tasting parts of the octopus, then the skin is the speaking part. The skin is how the octopus tells the world what it is feeling, what it is thinking, what it wants the world to see or not see. And the skin of an octopus is perhaps the most sophisticated living surface on this planet. It is not simply a covering. It is an active, dynamic, endlessly creative instrument, capable of transformations that happen faster than the eye can fully follow, faster than thought, in mere milliseconds. Beneath the surface of that skin lie three different kinds of specialized structures, three different tools for the art of transformation. There are chromatophores, tiny sacs of pigment that expand and contract under muscular control, flooding the skin with color or withdrawing it, painting patterns that appear and dissolve like thoughts. A single octopus has millions of chromatophores, each one controlled individually, each one capable of contributing to patterns of extraordinary complexity and precision. Then there are iridophores, cells that do not contain pigment at all, but instead use the physics of light itself, creating color through interference, through the way thin layers of reflective material interact with the wavelengths of the light passing through them. The colors that iridophores produce are not pigment colors, not red from red molecules or blue from blue molecules, but structural colors that arise from the geometry of the light, from angles and thicknesses and interference patterns, the same physics that makes a soap bubble shimmer or the wing of a butterfly catch the sun in that particular impossible way. And finally, there are papillae, small muscular projections that can rise up from the surface of the skin or flatten back into it, changing not just the color of the octopus, but its texture entirely, its silhouette, the way its surface catches or scatters light, its whole physical presence in the world. Together, these three systems give the octopus the ability to become something else in the space of a heartbeat, to be a smooth, pale creature one moment and a rough brown stone the next, to ripple with waves of color that move across the body like thought moving across water, to display patterns that have never been cataloged, that exist nowhere else in nature, that the octopus seems to invent in the moment of needing them. Scientists who study octopus camouflage sometimes describe watching an octopus settle against a new surface and simply become it, matching not just the color but the texture, the contrast, the spatial frequency of the pattern, in a process so fast and so accurate it seems less like a physical change and more like a decision, a single clean act of will. But what is perhaps most astonishing of all is that octopuses do this with skin that almost certainly cannot perceive color in the conventional way. Their eyes, beautiful and strange and structurally sophisticated as they are likely colorblind in the traditional sense. They have only a single type of photoreceptor where we have three, and yet the colors they create, the patterns they wear and shed and wear again, are precise and complex and perfectly matched to the world around them. How they do this is still, in the most honest and humbling sense, a mystery. Some researchers have suggested that the skin itself may be photosensitive, that it may perceive light directly, that the octopus may in some sense see with its entire body, reading the world's colors through the surface that displays them. It is the kind of idea that sounds like poetry until you look at the evidence, and then it sounds like poetry that also happens to be true. The mantle, the rounded body above the arms, is where the octopus keeps its heart. It's three of them, one main heart and two branchial hearts that push blood through the gills, its stomach and its ink sac, and its reproductive organs, and that small central brain that coordinates but does not entirely control. The mantle breathes, expanding and contracting with the movement of water through the gills. It is soft and rounded and strangely gentle looking, like a closed fist slowly opening, and when the octopus is calm and resting, it has a quality of deep peace about it, a stillness that seems to come from the inside, from some central quietude that the creature carries even in a world full of predators and tides and the endless uncertainty of cold water. When the octopus moves by jet propulsion, drawing water into the mantle cavity and then expelling it through a muscular siphon, the mantle contracts sharply and the animal is launched backward through the water with surprising speed. But even this movement has a quality of thought about it. The siphon can be aimed in almost any direction, giving the octopus precise control over where it goes, turning jet propulsion into something far more nuanced than mere fleeing, into navigation, into maneuvering, into the particular grace of a creature that has spent 400 million years learning to be exactly what it is. And all of this, the arms and the skin and the soft boneless body and the beak like a dark secret at the center of it all of this is touched by the water constantly, the water moving over every surface, the suckers reading it at every moment, each sucker a tiny listening ear pressed against the world, tasting the cold current and the smooth stone beneath, the way a sleeper's fingers absently trace the edge of a blanket while somewhere deep in the mind a dream is being quietly assembled, neuron by neuron in the vast and patient dark. Consider what it means to think with your entire body, to have intelligence not housed in a single room, not locked behind one door, but distributed like candlelight across many small flames, each one burning with its own gentle purpose, each one capable of warmth and illumination, even when the others are far away. This is the octopus. This is the creature that asks us to reconsider everything we thought we understood about where a mind lives, and what a mind is, and whether something as ancient and soft and boneless as this animal might carry within its 8 arms, a form of knowing so different from our own that we have only just begun to find the language for it. There are within the body of an octopus approximately 500 million neurons. Pause with that number for a moment the way you might pause at a window when the light outside is doing something extraordinary. 500 million. It is a number comparable to what you would find inside the brain of a dog, that warm and loyal creature we have lived beside for thousands of years, whose eyes seem to hold such recognition and feeling. We do not hesitate to believe the dog is thinking. We do not hesitate to believe the dog remembers, anticipates, loves in its own fashion. And yet the octopus, with its comparable wealth of neurons, has arranged them so differently that it seems almost to belong to a different philosophy of being alive. The central brain of an octopus is a remarkable and somewhat improbable thing. It sits at the center of the animal, yes, but it does not sit the way our brains sit, cushioned and protected inside a hard vault of bone, sovereign and separate from the body it governs. Instead, the octopus brain wraps itself in a ring, a soft donut of neural tissue, and at the center of that ring passes the esophagus. The food the octopus eats travels through its brain, Every swallowed shrimp, every fragment of crab, every small and struggling fish passes literally through the middle of the thinking organ, through the center of whatever it is that makes this creature itself. There is something deeply poetic about this, something that resists easy metaphor and yet invites it endlessly. To eat is, for the octopus, also to feed the brain in the most immediate and physical sense imaginable. The body and the mind are not separate floors of the same house. They are the same room. They are perhaps the same breath. But the central brain, that donut-shaped marvel wrapped around the esophagus, is only the beginning of the story. Because the majority of those 500 million neurons do not live there at all. They do not cluster in the center, waiting for orders to be dispatched and returned. Instead, they have migrated outward, flowing down each of the 8 arms like rivers finding their way to the sea, and in each arm they have gathered themselves into dense and purposeful structures called ganglia, clusters of neurons capable of doing something extraordinary. They are capable of thinking locally. Each arm, you see, is not merely a limb that receives instructions. It is something closer to a small mind, a satellite intelligence that can make decisions, respond to sensation, explore and grasp and taste and navigate without ever sending a message back to the central brain to ask permission. When an octopus reaches an arm into a dark crevice, feeling along the rock for the hidden shelter of a crab, the arm itself is participating in the search. The central brain may have initiated the impulse, may have pointed the arm in a general direction the way a conductor raises a baton, but the nuanced work, the delicate sensing and adjusting and responding, that happens in the arm itself, in those local clusters of neurons pressing against the world like small and attentive listeners. This is why an octopus can be engaged in multiple tasks simultaneously, in a way that feels less like multitasking and more like a quiet and effortless collaboration between self and self. One arm might be anchoring the body to a rock. Another might be probing a shell. A third might be doing something that looks, to our eyes, almost like idle curiosity, running its tip along a surface for no apparent reason except perhaps the pleasure of feeling. The central brain does not need to supervise each of these activities. It trusts its arms the way a dreaming person trusts their body to keep breathing, to keep the heart steady, to hold the world together while the mind goes wandering. This distributed intelligence produces results that continue to surprise the scientists who study these animals with something that might itself be described as awe. Octopuses can solve puzzles that require multiple sequential steps, the kind of problem solving that demands not only memory but planning, the ability to hold a future action in mind while executing a present one. They can open jars sealed with child-proof caps, those clever mechanisms designed specifically to frustrate the relatively dexterous and cognitively capable hands of human children. The octopus encounters such a jar, perhaps filled with the irresistible scent of a crab, and it explores the lid, grips it, twists in the direction that yields, applies the right force in the right sequence, and opens it. Not once, not by accident. Again and again, with increasing efficiency, as though the memory of how to do it sinks into the arms themselves, becomes a kind of knowledge that lives in muscle and sensation as much as in anything we might call thought. They navigate mazes. They find their way through constructed labyrinths with the calm persistence of creatures who have spent millions of years learning to move through the complex three-dimensional architecture of a coral reef, where every passage looks like another, where the reward is hidden around a corner that requires both memory and imagination to anticipate. In laboratory settings, octopuses have demonstrated that they can learn to associate symbols with outcomes. that they can recognize individual human faces and respond differently to different people, that they can develop what researchers describe carefully and with appropriate scientific caution as individual personalities. Some are bold, some are shy, some approach a novel object with immediate and energetic curiosity. Others hold back, watching, considering, as though they prefer to understand a thing before they commit to touching it. And perhaps the most luminous mystery of all, the one that sits at the center of scientific conversation about octopus consciousness like a small flame in a very dark room, is what happens when they sleep. Octopuses sleep. They find a shelter, a den, a crevice, or a collected pile of shells, and they settle into stillness. Their bodies relax. Their chromatophores, those thousands of tiny pigment cells that give them their astonishing ability to change color and pattern, quiet themselves into a resting state. And then, after some period of this quiet stillness, something begins to happen that no one fully understands. The skin starts to move, not in response to any external threat, not as camouflage. The color begins to shift and flicker and pulse across the mantle and the arms in rapid, complex patterns, lights chasing themselves across the surface of the animal in ways that look, to a watching human, startlingly like the color displays the octopus produces when it is awake and actively engaged with the world. These episodes are brief, lasting perhaps a minute before the animal stills again, and then they return, cycling through the sleep period in a rhythm that has led researchers to compare them to the rapid eye movement phases of human sleep, those intervals of our own rest when the brain is most active, when the dreaming is most vivid, when the eyes move behind closed lids as though watching something that exists only on the interior screen of the sleeping mind. In human sleep, in the sleep of mammals, REM is associated with memory consolidation, with the processing of emotional experience, with dreaming, in the full, rich sense of that word. The brain during REM is not quiet. It is busy in a particular way, reviewing and replaying and reorganizing the information gathered during waking life, turning raw experience into something more durable and integrated. What is the octopus brain doing during those flickering episodes? What is being replayed across that skin? When the chromatophores pulse in patterns that resemble the active camouflage of a hunting octopus, is the nervous system rehearsing the hunt, running through the sensory memory of a crab's texture, the cold feel of the rock, the way the current moved around the arm as it reached? Is there something it is like to be an octopus in the grip of these flickering interior episodes? Something it is like in the way there is something it is like to dream, to experience the peculiar reality of a sleeping mind that does not know it is sleeping. These are questions that science approaches with great care and appropriate humility, because consciousness is the hardest problem there is. The question whose edges resist every tool we have tried to press against them. We cannot see inside a mind. We can only observe behavior, measure neural activity, notice patterns, and then stand back and wonder at what those patterns might mean in terms of inner experience. With octopuses, the wondering feels particularly charged, particularly alive, because everything about them is so different from us, so evolved along a completely separate branch of the tree of life, that their intelligence cannot be explained as an inherited similarity. They did not arrive at puzzle solving and dreaming like sleep states and distributed cognition because they share an ancestor with us who had those traits. They arrived at all of it independently, following a path that diverged from our own more than 500 million years ago, back when life on Earth was still largely soft and strange and testing every possible shape a living thing might take. And so, when we watch an octopus move through the world, each arm carrying its own small wisdom, each sucker reporting back its fine-grained sensory news to those local clusters of neurons that never need to ask the central brain for guidance, we are watching something that is, in some deep sense, a different answer to the same question. The question that life keeps posing to itself in every corner of this planet. How do you know a thing? How do you reach toward the world and understand what you're reaching toward? How do you build from the raw material of sensation, something that feels like experience, something that accumulates into memory, something that might, on a quiet night, when the body has finally stilled and the den is dark and the water is cold and still, become something that moves across the sleeping skin like light, like color, like the wordless language of a mind that is still, even now, still reaching. The ocean holds so many questions like this, sealed inside their soft and brilliant bodies, going about the ancient business of being alive in ways we are only beginning to witness, and deep in some sheltered crevice, in water that moves with the slow breath of a sleeping sea, the sleeping octopus pulses gold and silver across its mantle, colors chasing each other like thoughts half-formed, like the way a dreaming mind replays the day in images that shimmer and dissolve. And scientists watching those flickers have begun to wonder whether somewhere inside that soft body there is something that feels like the sleeping octopus pulses gold and silver across its mantle. Colors chasing each other like thoughts half-formed, like the way a dreaming mind replays the day in images that shimmer and dissolve, and scientists watching those flickers have begun to wonder whether somewhere inside that soft body there is something that feels like a dream. Not the way we dream with our layered brains and our narrative sense, our tendency to cast ourselves as heroes in stories that dissolve at dawn, but something older and stranger, something that moves through the body rather than arriving in a single place, the way a ripple moves through water without the water itself going anywhere. And what makes this wonder so particular, so quietly astonishing to those who study it, is that the octopus is, by almost every measure we have, colorblind. Let that settle for a moment. Breathe slowly and let it drift into you the way light drifts down through water, softening as it descends. The octopus, that master of disguise, that living jewel of the reef and the rock shelf and the dark between stones, the creature that can shift in a single blink from the mottled brown of a sandy seafloor to the intricate purple and cream of a sea fan, the animal that is perhaps the finest impersonator in the history of life on this planet, sees the world through eyes that carry only a single type of photoreceptor. A single type, where you and I have 3 kinds of cone cells in our eyes, each tuned to a different band of light, each sending a slightly different message up the optic nerve so that our brains can triangulate and construct the rich, full palette of human vision. The octopus has only one key, you might say, to what should be a lock with many tumblers. One instrument playing alone in a concert hall built for an orchestra. And yet the reef shimmers with color, and the octopus moves through it like a poet who knows every word. How is this possible? How does a creature with no apparent ability to distinguish red from green from blue manage to drape itself so precisely in the exact hue of its surroundings? It is one of those questions that science holds carefully, the way you might hold a soap bubble, aware that too firm a grasp will end it, that the answer when it comes may be stranger than the question. Researchers have been sitting with this mystery for years now, turning it over gently in the light, and what they have begun to suggest is something that feels less like a biological explanation and more like a riddle written in the language of physics. The hypothesis has to do with chromatic aberration. It is a phenomenon you may have encountered in old photographs or imperfect lenses, a kind of blurring that happens at the edges of things, a faint rainbow halo where colors fail to focus in quite the same place. It happens because different wavelengths of light bend at slightly different angles as they pass through a curved surface, a lens, an eye, a drop of water. Red light and blue light, arriving at the same lens, do not land in quite the same spot. They are very slightly out of sync. And in a human eye, in most vertebrate eyes, this is corrected for, smoothed over by the presence of multiple photoreceptors that triangulate and reconcile. But in an eye with only one type of photoreceptor, that blur cannot be ignored. It becomes, perhaps, information. The octopus pupil is extraordinary. It is not the round darkness we know from our own reflections in mirrors, nor the vertical slit of a cat's gaze, but something far stranger, something that in certain lights looks like a crescent or a dumbbell, or the letter W drawn by a hand that has forgotten the rules of the alphabet. That unusual shape, researchers hypothesize, may allow the octopus to sample light coming in from many different angles simultaneously, and because chromatic aberration affects those angles differently depending on wavelength, the octopus might be able to determine color not by comparing signals from different receptor types, but by adjusting its own focus, by moving through a range of focal depths the way a careful photographer adjusts a lens until the image sharpens, feeling for the depth at which a particular wavelength lands cleanly on the retina. Color perceived not as a direct sensation, but as a kind of question asked of the light. A tuning, a search. It is a slower, more deliberate kind of seeing, if seeing is even the right word for it. It is more like reading, perhaps, or listening, the way you might tilt your head slightly to catch a word in a noisy room, adjusting the angle of your ear until the signal clarifies. The octopus may be doing something like this constantly unconsciously, reading the color of the world through the language of focus and blur, through the physics of bending light, through a process that leaves no single moment of perception, but rather an ongoing embodied conversation with the wavelengths of the sea. And then there is the skin. Rest here for a moment with that. The skin itself. Scientists have discovered something that sounds, at first, like it belongs in a dream or a story, rather than a peer-reviewed paper. The skin of the octopus contains opsins. Opsins are the light-sensitive proteins that form the basis of vision, the molecular machinery by which eyes convert photons into neural signals, the fundamental building blocks of sight. We expect to find them in eyes. We do not expect to find them spread across an entire body, embedded in the chromatophores and muscle fibers of the skin itself. And yet there they are, waiting in the tissues of an animal that should not need them there, light-sensitive proteins lying quietly in the surface of a creature that already has two perfectly functional eyes. What does this mean? The honest answer is that we are still not entirely certain. The octopus skin cannot, as far as we understand, send signals directly to the brain in the way that eyes do. There is no optic nerve running from the mantle to the optic lobe. Whatever light the skin perceives, it may perceive locally, for local purposes, making small and immediate adjustments to pigmentation in direct response to the light that falls on that particular patch of skin, without the need to consult the brain at all. The skin, in a sense, may be doing its own quiet seeing, feeling the light, tasting the color, responding not to what the octopus thinks it sees, but to what the skin itself is bathed in. This is a kind of perception, so distributed, so decentralized, so unlike our own experience of vision as a single window through which we look out at the world, that it is almost impossible to imagine from the inside. But perhaps you have felt something like a distant echo of it on a warm afternoon, when sunlight falls on your closed eyelids and you feel its color without quite seeing it, when the redness of the light comes to you not as image but as warmth and presence, a knowing without a looker, a perception without a witness. Perhaps the octopus lives there in that space all of the time. And while all of this quiet mystery is unfolding at the level of cells and proteins and bending light, the octopus is also doing something that stops even the most composed researcher in their tracks. It is matching its surroundings, not approximately, not in a general good enough kind of way, but with a precision that should not be possible given everything we have just described. An octopus encountering a new surface, say the dimpled, branching, varicolored surface of a coral head, or the smooth dark expanse of a volcanic rock shelf, or the pale rippled sand of a shallow lagoon floor, can reproduce not just the approximate hue, but the precise texture, the exact pattern, the specific spatial frequency of that surface across its own skin. And it can do this in approximately 200 milliseconds. That is faster than you can blink, faster than conscious thought, faster than the time it takes to read this sentence aloud. 200 milliseconds. Let that number drift through you gently. It is not a number that invites anxiety. It is a number that invites wonder, the particular wide-open wonder that arrives when we encounter evidence that the universe is far more intricate, far more patient, far more lavishly inventive than our ordinary days lead us to expect. Thousands of chromatophores, those tiny pigment-filled cells, each one controlled by its own set of muscles, expanding and contracting in concert. Papillae rising and falling across the skin's surface to create texture in 3 dimensions. Iridophores, shifting the angle of their crystalline plates to alter how light reflects. All of this happening at once, in less time than a single heartbeat, guided by a process that is not fully conscious, that does not involve deliberate decision-making in any sense we would recognize, that emerges from the skin and the nervous system working together in some collaboration we do not yet have the language to fully describe. And some octopuses do not stop at matching their immediate surroundings. Some of them take the art of transformation to a place that crosses the border from biology into something that feels almost like theater. The mimic octopus, Thaumoctopus mimicus, discovered in the waters off Sulawesi in Indonesia, has been observed imitating more than 15 other species. Not vaguely, not impressionistically, but with a specificity of posture and movement and color that fools not just human observers, but presumably the predators and prey for whom the disguise is actually intended. It can arrange its 8 arms to trail behind it, in a way that reproduces the silhouette of a flatfish gliding across the seafloor, the specific movement, the exact flattening of the body, the swimming motion of the fins along the edges. It can hold its arms swept back and rigid and move through the water with an undulating rhythm that mimics the motion of a lionfish, the warning colors of something dangerous, something armed with venomous spines. It can twist 2 of its arms into a burrow, while letting the remaining 6 wave gently in patterns of brown and white and yellow that, to any watching eye, read as a banded sea snake emerging from the sand. The mimic octopus appears to select its disguise. Studies suggest that when it is threatened by a particular type of predator, it chooses an imitation that predator specifically avoids. It does not simply default to a single protective costume. It reads the situation, assesses the threat, and selects from its repertoire. This is something that begins to resemble intelligence, begins to brush against something we might cautiously call understanding, the sense of a mind that is not just reacting but interpreting, modeling the world and its inhabitants, and making choices within that model. And yet the octopus does all of this while being, in the technical sense, colorblind. It builds this elaborate theater of color and texture and mimicry from a single note of light perception, from the strange physics of chromatic aberration and pupil geometry, from the mute light-sensitive whisper of opsins scattered through its skin, from processes that may have no single seat in the brain, no central stage on which the whole performance comes together, but that emerge instead from the entire body working as a distributed, collaborative, remarkably precise instrument. There is something in this that feels almost like a gift, a reminder that the ways of perceiving the world are vastly more numerous than we tend to imagine when we are enclosed in our own particular mode of sensing. That color is not a single thing, not a simple property of objects waiting to be read correctly by the right kind of eye, but a conversation, a negotiation between light and surface and the particular sensory machinery that encounters them. That there may be as many colors as there are ways of asking the question. And so the octopus moves through its water world carrying this quiet revolution inside it. This radical alternative to the kind of seeing we know, a creature that sees without quite seeing, that knows color through some quiet sense we have no name for yet. The way sometimes in the space between waking and sleep, you perceive something vivid and certain that vanishes the moment you reach toward a creature that sees without quite seeing. That knows color through some quiet sense we have no name for yet. The way sometimes in the space between waking and sleep you perceive something vivid and certain that vanishes the moment you reach toward it. And so the octopus moves through its world, colored in mysteries, navigating the dark water not only by light and shadow, but by something deeper, something older, something written into its skin like a language that predates all the languages we have ever spoken or dreamed. But now let us follow the octopus a little further. Let us watch it not merely as it rests or thinks, or changes color in the trembling reef light, but as it goes about the quiet work of living. Because the octopus is, at its heart, a creature of industry, a creature of small, careful tasks, and there is something deeply comforting about watching a being so ancient and so strange go about its evening in a way that feels at its edges almost familiar. The ocean at night is a different world entirely. When the sun slips below the horizon and the surface of the water loses its silver shimmer, when the reef settles from gold to gray to the deep, humming blue of true darkness, something shifts. The daytime creatures tuck themselves into crevices and corals, fold their fins close, slow their breathing, and the night creatures begin to stir. This is the hour the octopus has been waiting for. This is its time. Octopuses are, at their core, nocturnal hunters. They prefer the cover of darkness the way you might prefer a quiet room, the way you seek out the dimmed lamp and the low hum of evening rather than the sharp brightness of midday. The dark is not frightening to the octopus. The dark is home. The dark is opportunity. Under the cloak of the night ocean, the octopus unfolds itself from its den and begins to move, flowing over the seafloor with that boneless, hypnotic grace, its arms trailing behind it like ribbons in slow water. It is hunting now, and what it hunts are the small armored creatures of the reef bottom, the crabs picking their cautious way between rocks, the shrimp flickering like little sparks in the black water, the occasional small fish drifting too close to the shadow that is suddenly, very swiftly, no longer just a shadow. The octopus is patient in its hunting. It does not rush. It watches and it waits, and it moves with an economy of motion that is almost meditative to observe, like watching someone lay out the pieces of a puzzle they have solved 1,000 times before, each gesture precise, unhurried, certain. When the moment comes, it comes quickly. The octopus spreads its webbed arms wide, forming that parachute shape, that soft dome of flesh and muscle that drops over the prey and closes around it before the crab or shrimp has any time to register what has happened. The darkness hid the approach. The softness of the octopus's body made no sound, no vibration in the water that a crab's tiny hairs might have detected in time. It is in its way a perfect act, clean and swift and quiet. But the octopus does not simply crush its prey to submission, though its arms are strong enough for that. It has something else, something more elegant and more ancient, a secret carried in its saliva. Octopuses produce a venomous compound, a fluid delivered not through a stinger or a spine, but through their beak, a small, sharp, parrot-like structure hidden at the center of all those arms, the one hard part in an animal made almost entirely of softness. When the octopus bites its prey, this venomous saliva flows into the wound, and it acts swiftly. It immobilizes. It stills. The struggling crab grows quiet. The shrimp stops its desperate flickering. And the octopus carries its meal home in the cradle of its arms, unhurried, its colors cycling slowly through soft browns and tawny golds. It is worth pausing here in this thought of venomous saliva, to let the mind drift toward one of the ocean's most extraordinary small creatures, because not all octopuses carry the same venom in equal measure. Most produce compounds mild enough to subdue a crab without posing any meaningful threat to larger animals. But there is one small and jeweled exception that carries something altogether different. The blue-ringed octopus lives in the warm, shallow waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, in the tide pools and coral gardens of Australia and Southeast Asia, and it is beautiful in the way that certain very serious things are beautiful, with a kind of luminous warning written across its skin. It is no larger than a golf ball. You could hold it in the cup of your palm, and it would fill no more space than a tangerine. This soft little creature with its brownish body and its extraordinary rings. Those rings, the blue-ringed octopus's signature and its name, are iridescent, an electric, vivid blue that pulses and brightens when the animal is disturbed, as if the blue light itself is the message, which of course it is. The rings are a warning. They are the animal saying, in the only language it has, please do not do this. Because this small golden brown, quietly beautiful creature carries within it enough tetrodotoxin to kill 26 adult humans. 26. And yet it weighs almost nothing. It asks only to be left alone, to hunt its small crabs in its tide pools, to tuck itself into its rocky crevice as the sun climbs high. Tetrodotoxin is one of the most potent neurotoxins known. It works by blocking the sodium channels in nerve cells, stopping the signals that tell muscles to move, to breathe. There is no antidote. There is only care and time, and the hope that the body can be supported through the paralysis until the toxin metabolizes and releases its hold. The blue-ringed octopus does not seek confrontation. It carries its extraordinary power the way a stone carries heat, quietly, without announcement, until the moment when announcement becomes necessary. But we are drifting from our hunter, from our ordinary, midnight-colored octopus flowing home through the dark water with its captured crab, and there is still so much to see. Let us follow it home. The octopus's den is usually a small space. A crack in the rock, a hollow beneath a coral shelf, a space between two stones, just wide enough for a soft body to pour itself inside and settle. Octopuses are famously good at finding such spaces, at testing openings with their flexible arms before easing the rest of themselves through, like someone who reaches a hand around a door before stepping into a room. Just checking, just making sure. The den is the center of the octopus's world. It is where it sleeps in the dreaming color-cycling way we visited in an earlier part of this story. It is where it eats. It is where it retreats when the ocean feels too large or too bright or too full of things with teeth. And around the den, if you look carefully, you will notice something. A small pile of debris. Shells mostly. The hinged shells of the clams the octopus has eaten. The carapaces of crabs. Fragments of rock and detritus arranged not randomly, but in a loose heap just outside the entrance to the den. These piles have a name. Researchers call them middens, borrowing a term from archaeology, where it describes the waste heaps left outside human dwellings, the ancient trash piles that have told us so much about how our ancestors lived. The octopus's midden tells a similar story. Here is what I have eaten. Here is what I have discarded. Here is the record of my days. What makes middens remarkable is that they represent something almost unheard of among invertebrates, the animals without backbones, the vast and ancient and often underestimated group that includes everything from worms to beetles to starfish. Octopuses are, as far as we know, the only invertebrates that engage in this kind of consistent, deliberate housekeeping. They clean their dens, they carry waste outside and deposit it in a specific place. They maintain their home. There is something so quietly touching about this, something so recognizable across the vast distance between our kind of mind and theirs, that even reading about it, even just picturing it, there is a little warmth that rises in the chest. The octopus tidies up. And then there is the matter of the coconut shells. Because the octopus's relationship with its home, its need for shelter and enclosure and that den-like coziness runs even deeper than the midden suggests. Researchers observing octopuses off the coast of Indonesia made a discovery that shifted how we think about invertebrate intelligence entirely. They watched octopuses collecting the discarded halves of coconut shells, the kind that litter the seafloor in coastal waters where humans have been nearby, and carrying them across the seafloor. The octopus would gather a shell half, flip it, hold it against its underside with its arms, and walk on the remaining arms, stilting awkwardly across the sand and rock, looking nothing like its usual fluid self, specifically because it was carrying something, not running, not hunting, moving deliberately towards somewhere, transporting an object it intended to use later. When the octopus reached a suitable spot, it would sometimes nest inside the single shell half, pulling it overhead like a little dome. Or it would seek out a matching second shell and fit the two halves together around itself, creating a perfect, small, enclosed sphere of darkness and safety. A portable den, a house it carried with it. This is tool use, real, documented, intentional tool use, and it is astonishing, not because it is complicated, but because of what it requires. To carry a coconut shell across the seafloor in that awkward, stilting walk is actually harder than not carrying it. It slows the octopus down. It makes it more visible, more vulnerable. The octopus accepts that cost because it has calculated In whatever way an octopus calculates that having the shell later is worth the inconvenience of carrying it now. That is planning. That is the concept of a future self with future needs. It is one of the few documented examples of tool use among invertebrates on the entire planet. Let us sit with that for a moment. A small, soft animal on the seafloor, in the warm and shallow water, carrying half a coconut shell on what amounts to a walk home, planning for the night ahead, thinking in some wordless, color-soaked way about the shelter it will need when the currents shift and the darkness settles in around it. There is something in this image that slows the mind down in a good way. Something that asks us to soften the borders of what we mean by thinking, by planning, by the very quiet and ordinary desire to have somewhere safe to be when the world grows dark. The octopus in its den, with its midden at the door, with its coconut shell curved around it like a little world, is a creature that has solved the problem of being in the ocean the same way so many creatures have solved the problem of being anywhere. It has found its corner. It has made it small and familiar. It has learned the hunting grounds nearby and the fastest way home. It knows which rocks lean against each other at just the right angle to make a cave, and it knows the smell of the water when a storm is coming, the change in pressure and temperature that means it should pull itself deeper into the rock and wait. The octopus's relationship with the other creatures of the reef is complex and layered, the way all long relationships are. It is prey as well as predator. Moray eels hunt it, threading their sinuous bodies through the same rock crevices. The octopus calls home, following the ink clouds and the chemical traces through the water. Sharks take it when they can. Even other octopuses are not always safe companions, as some species will cannibalize members of their own kind. And yet the octopus has survived all of this, has persisted for hundreds of millions of years, has lived through mass extinctions and shifting seas and the rearrangement of continents. It is here, small and soft and brilliant, tucking itself into its rocky den and arranging its shells with the same careful attention its ancestors might have shown in some ancient, warm, shallow sea long before there was anyone around to notice. It hunts the crab and the shrimp and the small fish with precision and patience. It keeps its home tidy in the way of all creatures that value having a home. It plans ahead with its coconut shells, thinking of tomorrow in a way that makes tomorrow feel real. And then the hunt is done, and the crab is eaten, and the shells are carried outside and placed in their familiar pile, and the body settles into the den and the skin begins to cycle softly through its colors again, and as the tide pulls back and the reef settles into the deep blue of night, the octopus retreats to its small stone home, arranging the shells at the doorway with something that looks almost like care. The way we pull a blanket close and feel the edges of the room grow soft, and as the tide pulls back and the reef settles into the deep blue of night, the octopus retreats to its small stone home, arranging the shells at the doorway with something that looks almost like care, the way we pull a blanket close and feel the edges of the room grow soft and familiar. And this moment, this quiet, unhurried moment of an animal settling into its chosen place, is perhaps the first hint of something we will spend the rest of this gentle night slowly uncovering together, which is the idea that inside the soft and boneless body of an octopus, something is remembering, something is learning, something is in its own strange and beautiful way, knowing. Let us rest here for a moment, breathing slowly, and let the idea unfold the way a wave unfolds, without rushing, without effort, simply moving as it has always moved, carrying things gently to shore. We tend to think of intelligence as a tower, built upward, each floor added by creatures more complex than the last, until somewhere near the top we find the mammals we are most familiar with, the dolphins and the elephants and the great apes, and at the very pinnacle, or so we quietly flatter ourselves, us. But the octopus does not live in this tower. The octopus arrived at its remarkable mind by an entirely different staircase, one that branched away from our own lineage, something like 500 million years ago, back when life on Earth was still mostly a soft and dreaming thing, drifting in ancient seas that had not yet imagined anything like a spine. And yet here it is, remembering. There is something so quietly astonishing about this that it is worth staying with for a moment, the way you might stay with the last note of a piece of music after the room is gone still. The octopus remembers you. Not you specifically, perhaps, unless you have spent considerable time at the edge of an aquarium, but individual human faces, the specific arrangement of eyes and mouth and brow that makes one person different from another. These are things an octopus can learn and retain, filing them away in whatever soft archive its distributed brain maintains, and then when that familiar face appears again, reacting differently than it would to a stranger. Think about what this means. An octopus, an animal so architecturally unlike us that it might as well have arrived from another planet, looks at a human face and thinks in its own wordless way, "Oh, I know you." Scientists who have worked with octopuses in aquariums have described this phenomenon with a mixture of scientific precision and barely concealed delight, noting that octopuses in their care would sometimes behave warmly towards certain staff members moving toward them, perhaps even allowing themselves to be touched, while reacting with distinct coolness or outright avoidance toward others. This was not random. It was consistent. It held over time. The octopus was forming a social map, a quiet internal record of who had been kind and who had not, who was interesting and who was dull, who was worth approaching and who was better watched from a cautious distance behind a curtain of chromatophores. It has both short-term and long-term memory, which sounds obvious when stated plainly, but is actually a meaningful distinction, because these are two different systems, two different ways the brain processes and stores experience, and the fact that an octopus possesses both means that it is not simply reacting to the immediate moment, but actually building something over time, accumulating a kind of personal history, a quiet autobiography written in the language of experience rather than words. Long-term memory in an octopus can persist for weeks. Weeks of knowing, weeks of carrying something forward from one day into the next. And now let us drift a little further. Let the current take us somewhere slightly warmer, slightly more playful, because there is another dimension of octopus intelligence that is, if possible, even more quietly remarkable than memory, and that is the capacity to learn by watching. Most of us, if we are honest, have learned a great deal by watching our parents cook, watching a friend tie a knot, watching a stranger navigate a difficult conversation with grace, and thinking, almost without meaning to, I want to do that. We absorb the world through observation, letting other people's hard-won knowledge become our own without having to start entirely from scratch. This is called observational learning, and it is not, as it turns out, ours alone. Octopuses have been shown to watch another octopus solve a problem, navigate a maze, open a container, thread a path through an unfamiliar obstacle, and then, when given the same problem themselves, replicate the solution, not fumble toward it independently, not reinvent it from scratch. Actually apply what they watched, bringing it forward into their own attempt with something that looks from the outside rather a lot like informed strategy. This is a form of social learning, which requires several things happening at once. It requires attention, actually watching, not merely being present. It requires representation, forming some internal model of what the other animal is doing and why. And it requires transfer, taking that internal model and applying it to a new personally experienced situation. These are not simple things. They are the kinds of cognitive operations that for a long time we reserved in our thinking for animals with large, centralized brains and rich social lives and long periods of juvenile development during which they can be taught by their parents. The octopus, which lives alone, which raises no young, which has a lifespan measured in years rather than decades, manages this anyway. It watches, it learns, it remembers what it learned. There is something almost moving about this, if you let yourself feel it, because the octopus has no community in the traditional sense, no group to belong to, no elders to learn from through years of close proximity. It is in most meaningful ways entirely on its own, and yet it reaches for knowledge wherever it can find it, even in the brief, flickering observation of another creature doing something interesting on the other side of a tank wall. Which brings us gently to a story that researchers who work with captive octopuses sometimes share with a particular tone of voice that mixes careful scientific neutrality with something that sounds very much like suppressed laughter. There was an octopus, and there have been more than one, which is the important part, that did not like a particular light. The light was an aquarium lamp, bright and persistent, positioned in a way that apparently struck this particular octopus as unnecessary, intrusive, or simply irritating in some way we can only speculate about, since the octopus did not leave notes. What the octopus did leave was a pattern of behavior so consistent, so deliberate, and so clearly aimed that the researchers who documented it could not explain it away as coincidence. The octopus would gather itself, take careful aim, and squirt a jet of water directly at the light bulb repeatedly until the bulb shorted out. And then it would stop, because the light was gone. This happened not once but multiple times, with multiple individual octopuses across different facilities, each of them arriving independently at the same targeted, purposeful solution to the same problem, which is to say, the problem of a light that they apparently found deeply, persistently annoying. The behavior was not random splashing. It was not incidental water movement. It was aimed. It was repeated when the light came back on. It stopped when the light went out. What we are looking at, if we are willing to look honestly, is an animal that perceived a problem in its environment, formulated a response, executed that response with physical precision, evaluated the outcome, and repeated the behavior when the desired outcome required reinforcement. This is, in the language of animal cognition research, purposeful tool use adjacent problem solving. In the language of a sleepy storyteller sitting with you in the quiet, it is an octopus deciding that the light was annoying and doing something about it, repeatedly, until it got what it wanted. There is something so fundamentally, recognizably alive about this. The mild irritation, the persistent response, the satisfaction, presumably, of a problem resolved. You have felt this. We have all felt this. Now let us walk a little further down the corridor of octopus cognition, stepping softly, because we are approaching something that connects beautifully to memory and to the patience we have been building together through this gentle night, and that is the question of mazes. Researchers studying octopus learning have placed them in maze environments, layered sequences of choices and passages that require the animal to hold in mind not just its current position, but some model of the space it is moving through, to remember which paths led nowhere and which paths led somewhere worth going, to update that model as new information arrives and carry it forward. And octopuses reliably navigate these mazes. They learn them. They improve with repetition. They make fewer wrong turns the second time, the third time, the fourth, because they are not starting fresh each time but drawing on something stored, some map written in the soft tissue of their experience. And this learning, once acquired, persists. Weeks later, return to the maze, the octopus still knows. The knowledge did not fade like a dream by morning. It stayed, quiet and available, waiting to be useful. Weeks of knowing. We said this before, and it is worth saying again, because in the context of an animal whose entire life may span only 1 to 3 years, a memory that holds for weeks is not a small thing. It is a significant portion of a life. It is time spent carrying knowledge forward, building on it, being shaped by it in ways that affect future behavior. It is, in its own modest and genuine way, wisdom. And now, resting here in the warmest and perhaps most intimate corner of this particular room of knowledge, we come to something that feels almost personal, something that researchers working with octopuses return to again and again with a quiet kind of wonder, which is the question of personality. Not behavior, not instinct, personality. Individual octopuses observed carefully over time display consistent and distinct temperaments that cannot be explained by their immediate environment or the demands of a particular situation. Some are bold, moving readily toward new objects, new people, new spaces, apparently propelled by something that looks from the outside remarkably like curiosity. Some are shy, retreating to the edges of their tanks, watching from a careful distance before they will engage with anything unfamiliar. Some are aggressive, reactive, quick to ink and to retreat. Some are what researchers describe, with careful scientific hedging and barely hidden affection, as playful, engaging with objects that have no survival value whatsoever, manipulating things with no food reward on offer, apparently simply because the engagement itself is in some way rewarding. These differences are consistent over time. They are not random fluctuations. The bold octopus remains bold. The shy octopus remains shy. The one that treats every new object as a puzzle to be explored keeps treating every new object as a puzzle to be explored, week after week, in a pattern so stable and individual that the keepers who spend time with them give them names, not as an act of whimsy but as a practical necessity, because they have learned that knowing which octopus you are dealing with actually changes how you approach the interaction. This consistency across time and across varied situations is precisely what psychologists mean when they use the word personality, the stable and individual pattern of tendencies that makes one creature different from another of its kind in ways that are not reducible to the immediate demands of the moment. It is a pattern of being a particular self, with particular ways of meeting the world, and it turns out that this is not something that requires a large centralized brain, or a long childhood, or a rich social structure, or any of the other things we have traditionally associated with the kind of inner life that produces genuine individual character. The octopus, alone in its cool tank, or its sheltered crevice in the reef, is somebody, a particular somebody, different from the octopus in the next tank or the next crevice in ways that persist, in ways that matter, in ways that shape how that individual life unfolds from one quiet day to the next. It turns out that personality, that quiet sense of being a particular self with particular preferences, is not the exclusive province of creatures with backbones or long childhoods, and somewhere in a cool laboratory tank, an octopus named by its keeper is doing something no one asked it to do, simply because it seems to find it interesting, and this small, unremarkable detail, an animal in a tank doing something purposeless and particular to itself, opens quietly into one of the most tender and aching stories in all of nature. Because to understand what it means to be an octopus is eventually to understand something about time, about brevity, about the way a life can be so full and so fleeting that the two qualities seem almost to be the same thing, held in the same soft breath. Most octopuses live for only 1 to 3 years. Pause with that for a moment, if you will. Let it settle into you the way a stone settles into still water. 1 to 3 years. In that span, shorter than the time it takes many creatures just to open their eyes and find their footing in the world, an octopus will be born, will learn, will hunt, will solve, will play, will develop preferences and what we might carefully, tenderly call a personality, and will navigate a world of constant pressure and constant predation with an intelligence that researchers are still struggling to fully map or explain. Everything we have spoken about, all that wonder, all that problem-solving and curiosity and individual selfhood, is contained within a life that passes the way a single season passes, quietly, completely, leaving behind only ripples. There is something about this that is difficult to hold without feeling something. Not sorrow exactly, because sorrow implies loss in the way we usually know it, the missing of something that was meant to stay. What an octopus's brief life asks of us is perhaps something more like wonder salted with reverence, the recognition that brevity does not diminish depth, that a life can be both short and extraordinarily full, that the universe has arranged for some of its most astonishing cognition to flower and fade within the span of a few quiet seasons. And then comes reproduction, which is where the story of an octopus's life arrives at something that can only be called, in the softest and most honest language, bittersweet. When an octopus is ready to mate, it undergoes a kind of internal shift, a biological turning of a page that cannot be unturned. For males, this moment is already shadowed. A male octopus will seek out a female, approaching with a careful display of color and posture, tentative and elaborate at once. He may extend one of his arms toward her, specifically the third right arm, which in many species has been modified into what is called the hectocotylus, a specialized appendage used to transfer packets of sperm called spermatophores. This exchange can happen at a careful distance. Some males, for reasons that are not entirely mysterious given what can happen next, conduct the entire affair from as far away as possible, reaching that modified arm toward the female from the entrance of her den, keeping the rest of themselves at a prudent remove. Because female octopuses, particularly the larger species, are fully capable of deciding that the male before them would make a satisfactory meal. And sometimes they do. The male, having fulfilled his biological purpose, or even before he fully has, may find himself consumed by the very creature he sought out. This is not cruelty. It is simply the mathematics of survival. The fact that a female who needs energy for the enormous undertaking ahead will take it where she can find it, and a male who has already, in the deep logic of his biology, accomplished what he was built to accomplish, offers little resistance to the cold clarity of that arrangement. For males who are not eaten, the ending is not much gentler. Male octopuses often die within months of mating, their bodies following a kind of programmed senescence, a biological winding down that begins around the time of reproduction and proceeds with quiet inevitability. They become lethargic. They lose their appetite. They drift in the water column with something that looks from the outside like the slow surrender of a creature whose internal clock has reached its final number. There is no rallying. There is no second act. The male octopus mates, and then the male octopus fades, his brief and brilliant life closing like a light that was never meant to burn long, only brightly. The female story is different, and it is, in its way, one of the most extraordinary acts of devotion recorded anywhere in the animal kingdom. After mating, a female octopus will find or excavate a den, a crevice in the rock, a hollow in the seafloor, a sheltered space beneath a ledge, and there she will begin to lay her eggs. Between 100,000 and 400,000 of them. The numbers are staggering, almost impossible to picture, and yet they make a kind of sense, a biological hedge against the vast attrition of the ocean, where predators are everywhere and a successful hatching is never guaranteed. The eggs are small and translucent, clustered together in hanging strings that the female attaches to the ceiling and walls of her den with a natural adhesive, arranging them in flowing, ghostly curtains that drift in the current like something from a dream of underwater gardens. And then she settles in, and she does not leave. This is not a metaphor. This is not a simplification. She does not leave. For the entire period of incubation, which in many species lasts several weeks, the female octopus stays in her den and guards her eggs with an obsessive, total, consuming dedication. She stops eating entirely. This is the part that requires a moment to sit with, because it is not that food becomes unavailable to her. It is that she no longer pursues it, no longer hunts, no longer engages with the outside world as a creature that needs to sustain itself. She has redirected everything. All the energy of her being, all the intelligence and dexterity of those 8 extraordinary arms, is now devoted entirely to these small pearls of potential life clinging to the rock above her. She aerates the eggs. She passes water over them with gentle, rhythmic movements of her arms, ensuring that they receive enough oxygen, keeping the current moving across each cluster, so that no pocket of stagnant water can gather and threaten the developing lives inside. She cleans them. She removes any debris, any algae, any particles that settle onto the surfaces of the eggs, tending to each one with the same careful attention she might once have given to a difficult puzzle or a stubborn jar lid. She fans them. She watches them. In the dim light of her den, in whatever way an octopus perceives and experiences the world, she is present to these eggs in a manner that is, by any measure, total. And the weeks pass, and she grows thinner, and her colors, which in a healthy octopus ripple and shift with such extraordinary expressiveness, begin to settle into something stiller, something quieter, as though even that vivid language of pigment is being conserved for the work at hand. There is something happening in her brain during this period that scientists have only begun to understand. In the weeks following mating, the octopus's optic glands, small structures located near the eyes, begin secreting compounds that are thought to initiate a kind of programmed biological decline. Removing these glands in early experiments produced astonishing results. Females that suddenly resumed eating, wandered away from their dens, lived longer than they would have otherwise. The optic glands appear to be orchestrating something like a biological countdown, a hormonal cascade that tilts the female's entire physiology toward sacrifice and away from self-preservation. It is, in the language of science, a form of simultaneous reproduction, a single grand reproductive event that is linked inextricably to the end of the individual life. The body gives itself to the next generation, as if this were always the plan, which of course in the deep time of evolution, it always was. She will typically die shortly after the eggs hatch. Some females live just long enough to see the tiny paralarvae released into the water column, spinning upward in clouds of miniature, perfect octopuses no larger than grains of rice, each of them already equipped with chromatophores, with suckers, with the beginning inklings of everything they will one day become. Others die before the hatching is complete, their last act the tending of eggs that will open without them. Either way, the end is quiet. The den grows still. The hanging gardens of eggs release their cargo into the sea. But here, before we drift too far into sorrow, the ocean offers us something that reframes everything, deepens it, makes it larger and stranger and somehow more moving still. In the deep ocean, in the cold and pressured dark, far below the sunlit zones where most octopuses make their lives, there is a species called Granaldone boreopacifica, a deep-sea octopus, pale and soft, with large liquid eyes adapted to the near-total darkness of its environment. And in 2007, researchers observing the submarine canyon of Monterey Bay encountered a female of this species brooding a clutch of eggs on a rocky ledge at nearly 1,500 meters below the surface. They noted her location and returned periodically over the following months. She was always there. The eggs were always in her care, pale and luminous in the beam of the submersible's lights, and she was always tending them, always present, always watchful in her deep and silent way. They kept returning, and she kept staying. What researchers ultimately documented was a brooding period of 4.5 years, 53 months, the longest known egg brooding period of any animal on Earth. For 4.5 years, this mother in the deep water tended her eggs without eating, in cold and darkness, in a place where sunlight never reaches and time moves differently, measured not in days and seasons, but in the slow procession of the deep current and the occasional passage of a research vessel with its lights and its careful observers. Each time they came back, her body was thinner, her skin more pale, her movements slower, but she was there. She was always there. And eventually, when they returned one final time, she was gone, and so were the eggs, and in their place was the evidence of hatching, small marks on the rock where the egg stalks had been attached, and the empty water where the paralarvae had dispersed. She had given 4.5 years of her life to that vigil. In an animal that typically lives only 1 to 3 years, this is not simply a long time. It is an entire existence, an entirely different existence than the one she might have lived. She chose, if we can use that word, and perhaps we can, gently, carefully, the eggs over everything else, over hunting and movement and the ordinary continuation of herself. What to make of this is not entirely clear, and perhaps that is right. Perhaps some things in nature should not be immediately resolved into meaning, but should instead be allowed to simply rest in us the way deep water rests, vast and still and full of things we have not yet found. The science tells us about optic glands and hormonal cascades and semmelparous reproduction. And all of that is true and important and worth knowing. But it does not quite exhaust the feeling that rises when you picture her there, in the dark, in the cold, for 4.5 years, tending something she could not yet see become what it was meant to be. There is a quality to that image that exceeds category. It is not quite maternal instinct as we usually talk about it, not quite sacrifice as we usually frame it, not quite love as we usually define it. It is something older than all of those words, something that was moving through the ocean long before there was language to describe it. A biological imperative so deep and so complete that it reshaped an entire life around itself without remainder, without reservation, without anything held back. The deep-sea octopus mother in her canyon, the shallow water mother in her rock crevice, the eggs hanging like small lanterns in the dark water, the arms moving in their slow, patient, continuous tending, all of it part of the same story, the same ancient arrangement between a creature and its future, an arrangement made in the dark and kept in the dark and resolved in the dark with no audience and no reward except the hatching of something new into a world that will not remember her. She will not eat again, this mother in the dark water, but she tends each pearl of an egg with the same slow patience, breathing water across them in the silence of the deep, giving everything to a future she will not see, the way certain kinds of love ask nothing back and leave behind only the soft continuing she will not eat again, this mother in the dark water, but she tends each pearl of an egg with the same slow patience, breathing water across them in the silence of the deep, giving everything to a future she will not see, the way certain kinds of love ask nothing back and leave behind only the soft continuing of what was begun in warmth and is carried forward into cold, into depth, into the long descending dark that waits below even the deepest shelf of rock and sediment, where the ocean floor falls away like a held breath finally released, where the water grows not just cold but ancient, holding temperatures that have not changed in centuries, where pressure accumulates the way silence accumulates, layer upon invisible layer, until it becomes something you could almost touch. There are places in the ocean that have never been touched by sunlight. Not dimmed sunlight, not filtered or greenish or faint. No sunlight at all. Not ever. Not once in the entire history of the world. The light that falls on the surface of the sea on any given morning, that catches the foam and turns it briefly gold, that scatters across the waves in 10,000 dancing fragments, that light has never, in 4 billion years of the ocean's existence, reached these places. It simply stops. It runs out of itself. It gives what it can give, and then it is done. Absorbed by the water above, swallowed into warmth and chemistry, converted into growth and photosynthesis, and the long upward reaching of things that need the sun to survive. And everything below that level of absorption, everything below the last whisper of light, exists in a darkness so complete that it has its own texture, its own quality, its own strange intimacy. We call it the midnight zone. The name itself is a kind of poetry. Midnight, that hour when the world is most itself, most turned inward, most given over to quiet and stillness and the private work of dreaming. The midnight zone of the ocean begins roughly 1,000 meters below the surface and extends downward, past the point where most submersibles dare to go, past the ridges and the seamounts and the slow plains of sediment, down into trenches so deep that entire mountain ranges could be lowered into them and swallowed whole. Down here, the rules that govern the surface world begin to loosen. The relationships between creature and light, between visibility and survival, between form and function, all of these rearrange themselves according to a different logic, a logic shaped not by warmth and abundance, but by cold and pressure, and the long patience of waiting in the dark. And here, in this absolute and ancient darkness, there are octopuses. The thought of it should stop you for a moment. An octopus, that creature of tide pools and shallow reefs, that curious reef-colored ink-squirting animal you might have watched climbing over rocks in a seaside aquarium, has relatives who live 7 kilometers below the surface of the sea, 7,000 meters down, a depth so profound that if you fell into it from the sky, if the ocean opened and took you in, you would pass through every zone of light and color and warmth in the first few minutes, and then you would fall in darkness for a very long time before you reach the place where the Dumbo octopus moves through the cold as easily as you might move through a room in your own home. The Dumbo octopus is named for its fins, 2 of them, one on either side of its rounded, soft-bodied form, positioned above its eyes like ears, like the large gray ears of a cartoon elephant, and when it moves those fins in the darkness of the deep ocean, it rises and descends and turns with a slowness that looks like thought, like deliberate consideration, like someone deciding which direction to dream in next. There is no urgency in those movements. There is no urgency in any movement this far down. Urgency requires energy, and energy requires food, and food in the midnight zone is scarce and intermittent, arriving mostly as what scientists call marine snow, the slow drifting downward of organic matter from the world above, the shed scales and dead algae and tiny fecal pellets of creatures who live in the light, all of it descending like the quietest possible snowfall, nourishing this dark world from above the way a parent might slip food under the door of a room where something small and patient is waiting. The Dumbo octopus eats what it finds: small crustaceans, worms, copepods caught in the soft exploration of its arms along the seafloor. It has no need to flee from predators in the conventional way, and so it has shed one of the octopus's most famous defenses. Down here, in a world without light, ink is meaningless. There is no visual confusion to be created, no sudden dark cloud in a bright water column to obscure an escape. The deep-sea octopus has no ink sac. Evolution removed it as unnecessary, the way a house that is never visited loses its doorbell over time, the way the body releases what it no longer needs with a quiet and unhurried practicality. What you don't use becomes what you no longer are. The Dumbo octopus has simply become a creature of pure presence, of movement and sensation, and the slow reading of a world that exists entirely through touch and chemistry and the faint electrical signatures of living things. And then there is the glass octopus. Imagine for a moment something that is barely there. Not invisible, not quite, but transparent in the way that very clean water is transparent, in the way that the air on a cold morning is almost visible if you look at it from the right angle. The glass octopus, which drifts in the mesopelagic zone, that layer between the surface and the true deep, is nearly entirely see-through. Its skin, its muscle, its tissue, all of it carries the quality of glass, of water held in the shape of an animal. If you were to encounter one, which almost no human has, you would see through its body to the water behind it. You would see, floating within it like a small treasure inside a crystal box, the dark smudge of its digestive gland, its reproductive organs, the tiny engine of its internal workings, all of it visible, all of it nakedly present, with nothing between the creature's inside and the outside world, but the thinnest possible membrane of transparency. It is one of the strangest and most beautiful things in the natural world, and almost no one knows it exists. The glass octopus achieves this transparency as a form of camouflage. In the mesopelagic zone, faint light still filters down from above, and creatures that cast shadows or silhouettes are visible to predators looking up from below. By becoming transparent, the glass octopus removes itself from visibility in both directions. It is not hiding so much as it is simply choosing not to be seen, the way a thought can move through your mind without you quite catching it, the way the deepest feelings sometimes pass through you without leaving a name behind them. It exists in plain sight, as something that registers only as water, only as depth, only as the particular quality of light passing through a place where there is almost no light left to pass through. But transparency has one limitation. The eyes, with their dark, light-gathering structures, cannot be made transparent without losing their function entirely. And so the glass octopus has eyes that are visible, small dark points in all that glass, and it has evolved a way of positioning them. The tubular eyes of the glass octopus point upward almost always, oriented toward whatever faint light still descends from the world above, capturing that light for navigation and detection while the rest of the body remains invisible. Only the eyes give it away. Only the eyes say, "Here. Something is here. Something is watching from inside this water. Something is alive in the transparency." Down in the true midnight zone, where even the glass octopus does not venture, other deep-sea cephalopods have solved the problem of darkness differently. They have learned to make their own light, not through organs of their own design exactly, but through relationships, through partnership, through the ancient and collaborative solution of carrying something within you that lights up when it is warm and fed and comfortable. Bioluminescent bacteria live within the tissues of some deep-sea cephalopods, tended and nourished by their hosts in exchange for the soft, cold glow they produce. Other cephalopods use direct chemical reactions, the mixing of compounds that produce light the way certain feelings produce a kind of inner illumination, as though something long held quiet has finally been given permission to shine. This light serves different purposes depending on the creature. Some use it to communicate, flashing patterns to potential mates or rivals in the absolute darkness, a language of light where there is no other language possible. Some use it as a form of counter-illumination, lighting their undersides to match the faint downwelling light from above and disappearing against it the way the glass octopus disappears in transparency. Some produce light that is simply there, glowing in the dark the way certain things glow, without obvious purpose, without clear function, for reasons that are perhaps not yet fully understood, perhaps for reasons that have nothing to do with survival and everything to do with the fact that life, given any opening at all, tends toward expression. The water at these depths holds a pressure that is almost impossible to imagine from where you are now, lying warm and horizontal, the air around you weighing almost nothing, your lungs expanding and contracting with total ease. A human body taken to 7,000 meters depth would be destroyed by the pressure. Not gently, not slowly. The hollow spaces inside us, the lungs, the sinuses, the spaces between and around organs, all of these would collapse under a force hundreds of times greater than the pressure at the surface. The ocean at those depths does not have room for hollow things. It does not accommodate emptiness. It fills every available space with itself, with its cold, insistent weight, with its absolute presence. But the octopus, with no rigid internal skeleton, with no air-filled cavities, with no hollow structures to collapse under pressure, moves through this crushing world as though it were nothing at all. Its soft body simply adjusts. The water pressure around it is the same as the pressure within it, and there is no conflict, no crushing, no danger. The octopus at 7,000 meters is as comfortable in that impossible weight as you are in this room, in this air, in the gentle and unremarkable pressure of a world that holds you without your even noticing it holds you. The octopus carries no internal architecture that the ocean can break. It is softness all the way through, flexibility all the way through, and in that softness it finds a freedom that harder things cannot access. There is something worth sitting with in that idea. The thing that makes the deep ocean survivable for the octopus is precisely its lack of rigid internal structure. Its survival depends on its willingness to be shaped by the pressure rather than to resist it. Not passivity, exactly, because the octopus still moves and hunts and lives according to its own purposes, but a kind of radical accommodation to the conditions of the world it inhabits. A softness that is not weakness but intelligence, not surrender but a different and more ancient form of strength. The ocean cannot crush what has already learned to be fluid. The dark cannot frighten what has never depended on the light. In the midnight zone, time moves differently. Not metaphorically, not poetically, though it is both of those things, but in a real and measurable sense. The biological clocks that surface creatures use to organize their days, clock to the rhythm of light and dark, of the sun's rising and setting, have no anchor here. There is no dawn, there is no dusk. There is only the unchanging dark, and within that dark, the slow pulse of life continuing according to its own interior rhythm, according to something deeper and older than light, some timing mechanism that existed before sunlight was a reference point for anything alive. The Dumbo octopus does not know that above it, miles above it through a column of water so long that it contains the entire history of every sunlit creature's journey from surface to depth. The sun is probably rising right now over some part of the world. It does not know that somewhere a wave is catching that light and throwing it back into the sky. It does not know that you are lying somewhere warm and still, letting your breathing slow, letting the thoughts of the day unravel into something quieter and less urgent. It knows only the cold, the soft pressure of the water against its skin, the faint chemical signatures of food somewhere ahead, the movement of its own small fins in the profound and ancient quiet of the deep, and the particular way that darkness, total darkness, begins to feel not like an absence, but like a presence, not like something missing, but like something arrived, something full and complete and sufficient, something that has been here since long before anything needed to see. Down here where no sunlight has ever reached, where the pressure would flatten anything with hollow spaces inside it, the Dumbo octopus moves its small ear-like fins in a motion so gentle it looks like breathing, or like the turning of a sleeper in the dark who does not wake but simply down here where no sunlight has ever reached, where the pressure would flatten anything with hollow spaces inside it. The Dumbo octopus moves its small ear-like fins in a motion so gentle it looks like breathing, or like the turning of a sleeper in the dark who does not wake but simply settles deeper into the warmth of whatever dream has found them. And in that gesture, so quiet, so utterly unhurried, there is something that asks a question without words, something that makes the watching mind go still and wonder what it is like to be that creature floating in the absolute dark of the deep ocean, fins moving like the softest punctuation at the end of a sentence no one has yet learned to read. This is where the story of the octopus becomes something more than natural history. This is where it becomes philosophy, where it becomes, if you will allow it, something almost sacred in its implications, the kind of question that opens up beneath you like a depth you did not know was there, and you find yourself suspended over it, not afraid, but very, very quiet. For a long time, the question of consciousness, of inner experience, of what it feels like to be something, was treated as almost exclusively a human concern, and then reluctantly extended to mammals, and then to birds, and the circle grew slowly, cautiously, as though awareness itself were a rare and fragile resource that might run out if distributed too generously. The assumption, deep and often unexamined, was that minds like ours must have been built the way ours was built, through a particular lineage, a particular architecture, a particular inheritance of structures that vertebrates carry in their skulls like heirlooms passed down through hundreds of millions of years. Consciousness, in this view, was something that happened in one place, through one family of blueprints, and everything else was simply mechanism, simply response, simply the elegant but hollow performance of behavior, without the felt quality of experience behind it. And then there is the octopus, sitting at the end of an entirely different branch of the tree of life, having arrived at complexity through a journey that diverged from ours so long ago that the common ancestor we share is nearly unimaginable. A small, soft, probably quite simple creature living in ancient seas before eyes had fully invented themselves, before limbs had been dreamed of, before the vertebral column had been proposed as a solution to the problem of having a body. From that distant, humble beginning, two lineages set off in entirely different directions, and one of them became us, with our spines and our skulls and our centralized brains folded into Baroque complexity inside a bony case, and the other became the cephalopods, and specifically the octopus with its distributed nervous system and its 8 semi-autonomous arms, and its skin that thinks and its colors that speak, and its eyes that evolution invented completely independently from our own, arriving at almost the same optical solution through an entirely different path, which is already astonishing enough, but which is only the beginning. Here is the thought that philosophers of mind return to again and again, the thought that glimmers at the center of what the octopus represents in our deepest questions about the nature of awareness. The octopus did not inherit its intelligence from us. It did not receive its nervous complexity as a gift passed down through shared ancestry. It built it separately from different starting materials, under different pressures, through different solutions. And yet, here it is, curious, problem-solving, playing, dreaming possibly, recognizing individual human faces, planning, waiting, and if intelligence, if something that looks very much like awareness and inner life, can arise twice through entirely independent paths, if the universe has, in 2 separate experiments running across hundreds of millions of years, produced nervous systems of sufficient complexity to generate something that at minimum resembles experience, then what does that tell us? It tells us, whisper the philosophers, that perhaps mind is not an accident. Perhaps consciousness is not a freak occurrence, a single lucky throw of the evolutionary dice that produced something unprecedented and unrepeatable. Perhaps when matter becomes sufficiently complex and sufficiently organized, when information flows through it in certain ways, when feedback loops close in on themselves and systems begin in some sense to model their own environment and their own state within it, perhaps then something like experience arises, not as a miracle, not as an exception, but as a kind of general feature of sufficiently complex matter, the way liquidity is a feature of water molecules gathered in sufficient number, the way heat is something that emerges from the movement of particles rather than residing in any single one of them. Perhaps awareness is like that. Perhaps it is something that matter does, under certain conditions, the way matter also burns, freezes, crystallizes, flows. This idea, gentle and enormous at the same time, received a kind of quiet institutional confirmation in 2021 when the United Kingdom government formally recognized octopuses as sentient beings, creatures capable of experiencing pain, of suffering, of positive emotional states, of something that counts, in the eyes of law and ethics as inner life. It was a small moment in the history of legislation, easy to miss among the noise of everything else that was happening in the world. But it was also a profound one, a line drawn in a new place, a circle expanded to include something that moves through the world in a body as different from ours as anything we have yet closely studied. And the recognition was not given lightly. It was built on evidence, on the accumulation of careful research, on the documented capacity of these animals to do things that in any other context we would not hesitate to call the signatures of felt experience. Researchers studying octopus behavior have found, for instance, that these animals will approach novel objects, unfamiliar things placed in their environment, without any apparent survival benefit in doing so. They do not approach them because the objects smell like food, or because they represent shelter, or because there is any immediately practical reason to investigate. They approach them because the objects are new. They approach them because something in them responds to novelty with what can only be described as curiosity, a reaching toward the unknown for its own sake, an orientation of attention toward that which has not yet been understood. And this is not nothing. Curiosity, in the philosophical literature on mind, is considered one of the hallmarks of inner life, because it implies a subject for whom things can be interesting, for whom the world is not merely stimuli to be processed, but experience to be had, a felt relationship with reality rather than a purely functional one. The octopus drifts toward the strange object, and in that drifting, something vast is implied. And beneath all of this, beneath the behavior and the recognition and the philosophical implications, there is the biology itself, which is strange and beautiful and unlike anything else we know. The octopus does not adapt to its environment the way most animals do, through the slow accumulation of DNA mutations passed across generations, through the gradual sculpting of the genome by natural selection working across long stretches of time. Instead, the cephalopod nervous system uses RNA editing, a process of altering the molecular instructions that translate genetic code into protein, making changes not in the master blueprint but in the working copies, allowing rapid reversible adjustments to neural function without touching the underlying DNA at all. When the ocean temperature shifts, when the chemistry of the water changes, the octopus can edit its own neural proteins in response, tuning its nervous system to the new conditions in a way that is faster and more flexible than anything genetic mutation could achieve. It is as though, instead of slowly rewriting a book across many generations, the octopus can annotate its own pages in real time, highlighting different passages, making marginalia that change how the text is read, adjusting the meaning without changing the words. This is a unique evolutionary strategy, found nowhere else with the same elaborateness, the same centrality to the creature's way of being in the world, and it speaks to something extraordinary about what the cephalopod lineage has become, a form of life that is in some sense more dynamic, more responsive, more immediately plastic than our own, a mind that edits itself continuously in response to the world it finds itself in, which is perhaps another way of saying that it is, in some deep sense, always listening, always in conversation with its environment, not just reacting but revising, not just responding but becoming, moment to moment, in a relationship with reality that has no equivalent in the biology we know best. Philosophers of mind, when they sit down to think carefully about consciousness, about what it is and where it lives, and how it arises, return to the octopus the way travelers return to a particular crossroads, because it is there that the map of assumptions has to be folded differently, there that the roads do not run in the expected directions, there that you have to stop and reconsider where you thought you were going. the debate between distributed and centralized consciousness, which is one of the deep structural debates in the philosophy of mind, finds in the octopus its most vivid real-world example. Our own consciousness feels centralized. It feels like it is happening somewhere, in one place, in one continuous stream, in a singular locus of experience that we call the self, the I, the one who is here noticing things. The brain, in our case, is the place where everything converges, where information from all the senses arrives and is integrated, and the unified experience of being a person in a moment arises. But the octopus has no such center, not in the same way. 2/3 of its neurons live not in its central brain, but in its arms, distributed through 8 semi-independent structures that can taste and touch and respond, and in some meaningful sense, decide without referring upward, without waiting for instruction from above. When an octopus arm reaches into a crevice to feel for prey, it is not merely an extension of a central will. It is, in some functional sense, thinking for itself, processing information locally, acting on what it finds. And yet, the octopus behaves as a coherent animal, coordinated, purposeful, apparently experiencing itself as a unified creature moving through the world, rather than 8 separate agents sharing a body. So how does that work? Where is the self in a creature so fundamentally distributed? Is there a self in the sense we mean by it? Or is there something else entirely? A different kind of coherence, a different shape of being, an experience of selfhood that we do not have a word for because nothing in our experience has ever required us to invent one. These questions have no answers yet. They exist in the beautiful, unresolved space where science and philosophy and wonder all touch each other, where the edge of what is known opens onto something larger that has not yet been named, and the octopus sits at the center of that space like a living koan, patient and strange and entirely itself, neither inviting nor withholding the understanding we reach for, simply being what it is, which is already more than enough to change the shape of the questions we thought we knew how to ask. And in the dark of the deep ocean, in the shallows where the light turns green and dappled, in the rocky pools where the small ones wait with their whole bodies alert, in the laboratory tanks where they have pulled apart the child-proof bottles and solved the puzzles and watched the faces of the humans watching them, in all of these places and in the 8-armed thinking of all of these creatures, there is something being suggested to us, quietly, without insistence. The way profound things tend to arrive, about the nature of mind and its relationship to matter, about what the universe does with itself when it has enough time and complexity and the right kind of dark, wet, pressured, resource-scarce environment to work with, about whether awareness is truly rare, or whether it is perhaps more like a tendency, a leaning, a thing that matter reaches toward the way a vine reaches toward light. Not because anyone commanded it to, but because under certain conditions, it simply does. The octopus did not evolve to answer our questions about consciousness. It evolved to hunt and hide, and survive and mate, and taste the water, and feel the pressure change, and edit its own RNA in the cold and navigate by polarized light, and do all the 10,000 things a living creature must do in order to remain living in an ocean full of things that would like to eat it. But in the process of all that living, it became something that sits at the very edge of what we understand, and it looks back at us with those strange horizontal pupils, and the looking is so present, so undeniably there, that something in us recognizes it even when our framework struggled to explain what we are recognizing. Something meets something. Something looks at something looking, and in that mutual regarding, In that small and unrepeatable moment of contact between two kinds of mind that evolved entirely separately and arrived nonetheless at the same ocean, something opens. And if mind can arise in a body so unlike our own, in 8 thinking arms and a brain shaped like a donut and skin that sees without eyes, then perhaps the universe is far more full of inner experience than we ever imagined, vast and quietly lit from within, the way the ocean looks from below when the surface shimmers with a light that seems to come from everywhere at once, sourceless and surrounding. The way wonder itself feels when you stop trying to locate it and simply let it wash over you like water. And now, gently, we return to the octopus. Not to study it, not to marvel at it with the sharp, bright edge of scientific attention, but simply to rest with it, the way you might rest beside a sleeping animal, watching the slow rise and fall of its breath, feeling your own breath begin to slow in quiet sympathy. We return to the octopus the way you return to a dream you half remember upon waking, something soft and luminous that you are not quite ready to leave behind. Somewhere in the ocean right now, in water that is cold and dark and enormously quiet, an octopus is coming to rest. It finds a place it knows, a curve in the reef, a hollow in the rock, a soft depression in the sand where the current barely whispers, and it settles. You would hardly know it was there. Its skin has already begun its slow work of transformation, matching the grain and color and shadow of the world around it, becoming less a creature and more a texture, less a presence and more a stillness. And then, in a gesture so unhurried, it barely seems like movement at all, it gathers its arms. All 8 of them, those long, thinking, wondering arms, drawn inward, tucked beneath the mantle in a smooth, continuous motion, like a thought folding itself away. The octopus becomes round, becomes almost perfectly still. From a distance in the shifting blue dark of the deep sea, you might mistake it for a stone, for a soft growth on the reef, for nothing at all. And perhaps that is exactly the point. Perhaps this is one of the oldest forms of rest there is, the art of becoming nothing for a little while. The art of letting the world flow past you as though you are simply part of it, simply another quiet shape in the long, slow dream of the sea. And as it rests, something extraordinary is happening inside that stillness. 3 hearts are beating, softly, slowly, in the way that hearts beat when all urgency has drained away and there is nothing left to do but keep the blood moving through its long blue journey. 2 of those hearts are small and specialized, devoted entirely to the gills, pressing blood through the delicate feathered structures where oxygen is drawn out of the water and given to the body. They are called branchial hearts, and they beat with a kind of patient faithfulness, a gentle insistence, as though they understand that their work is never truly finished, only rested. The 3rd heart is larger, systemic, responsible for carrying that oxygenated blood outward through the entire body, through the arms and the skin and the brain wrapped in its ring of tissue, through every cell of that strange and luminous creature. 3 hearts beating in the dark, keeping everything alive with the quietest possible persistence. And the blood those hearts are moving is blue, not metaphorically blue, not the dusty blue of veins seen through pale skin, but genuinely, beautifully, unmistakably blue, the color of shallow ocean water in early morning, the color of the sky just before it decides to be night. It is blue because of a molecule called hemocyanin, a copper-based structure that carries oxygen through the blood, the way hemoglobin carries it in ours, but doing so with copper instead of iron, and producing that soft blue color as a consequence. Hemocyanin is extraordinarily well suited to cold, low-oxygen environments, able to hold onto oxygen with gentle efficiency in conditions where our own blood might struggle. It is as though the octopus carries the chemistry of the deep ocean inside itself, as though the sea runs through it, not just around it, as though it has internalized the very element it lives within. Blue blood, moving slowly through 3 hearts, in a body tucked into stillness beneath the soft black water. There is something about this image that feels like a poem written in a language you almost understand. Something that asks to be felt rather than analyzed, the way certain music asks to be heard with your eyes closed, the way certain nights ask you to stop looking at your phone and simply lie there in the dark and let the silence be large and full around you. The octopus, resting with its arms folded and its hearts beating blue, is not trying to tell you anything. It is simply being, with an absoluteness and a completeness that most of us only approach in the deepest reaches of sleep. Speaking of sleep, the octopus, in its rest, slows everything down. Its metabolic rate drops, that beautiful biological term for the speed at which a body burns its fuel and processes its world. In rest, in the octopus, this rate falls away like a tide going out, gently, thoroughly, leaving behind only what is essential. The color patterns on its skin, those extraordinary dynamic displays that in waking life shift and ripple and pulse with information and camouflage and emotion, they slow too. They do not stop entirely, because an octopus's skin is always doing something, always at least half awake, with a low hum of its distributed nervous system. But they slow, they become languid, occasional, like thoughts arriving less and less frequently as you drift toward sleep, like the gaps between one idea and the next growing longer and softer and harder to hold on to, until the thoughts themselves become indistinguishable from the space between them. The body enters what scientists call a deep conservation of energy. Every system turned down to its lowest useful setting, every process given permission to rest. And somehow in that slowing, in that careful reduction of everything down to the essential, the octopus becomes more itself, not less. More present in the water, more integrated with the cold dark that surrounds it. As though the self is not something you have to maintain with constant effort, but something that remains when you stop efforting, something that the silence reveals rather than takes away. Perhaps you have felt this, the particular quality of rest that is not emptiness, but a kind of fullness, a fullness that only arrives when you have stopped filling yourself up with activity and noise and the relentless forward motion of the day. The octopus knows this fullness. It has always known it, long before there were words for rest, or meditation, or the nervous system, or the art of letting go. There were octopuses tucking their arms beneath themselves in the dark water, their hearts beating blue, their skin going slow and quiet, their extraordinary minds dimming down into something that looks from the outside almost exactly like peace. And before it came to rest, before it folded itself into that perfect, patient stillness, it moved. The way an octopus moves through open water is one of the most quietly astonishing things in the natural world. It uses jet propulsion, drawing water in through an opening in its mantle, and then expelling it in a smooth, directed burst through a narrow siphon, and the body is carried forward by the release, by the giving up, by the letting go of what it had briefly held. It is a form of movement that requires surrendering resistance to the sea entirely. You cannot fight the water and jet through it at the same time. You cannot hold tension in your body and also use the ocean as your engine. The movement requires a kind of trust, a willingness to draw in and then release, to be briefly full and then empty, to use the act of letting go as the very mechanism of motion. The octopus moves forward by releasing, it travels by surrendering. Every burst of that gentle jet propulsion is a small act of faith in the sea. There is a teaching in this, though the octopus is not trying to teach you anything. It is only moving through the water the way it has always moved, the way its kind has moved for hundreds of millions of years, long before there were teachers or students or anyone to draw a lesson from the grace of a creature moving through the dark. But still, draw in and release. Be briefly full and then let go. Trust the medium you are moving through. Let the act of releasing carry you forward. These are not bad instructions for a life. They are also, perhaps, not bad instructions for falling asleep. Because sleep, too, is a kind of jet propulsion. A drawing in of the day, all of it, the light and the noise, and the accumulated texture of every small thing that happened, and then a slow, deliberate release. The letting go of the surface, of the bright lit, fast-moving world, and the sinking down into something older and quieter, and altogether less concerned with the specific details of who you are and what you did today. Sleep is a form of surrendering resistance. It cannot be forced. It cannot be gripped, or controlled, or achieved by effort. It arrives like the octopus's open water, when you stop fighting and allow the current to carry you. And what a current it is! Blue and cold and ancient, moving through everything, connecting the deep trenches of the ocean to the shallow coral beds, and the open pelagic dark, and the rocky tide pools where small octopuses sit in inch-deep water and watch the land with curious golden eyes. The same water that carries the octopus in its jet-propelled drifting, the same water that holds the three-hearted stillness of its rest, flows also as weather, flows as cloud and rain and river, flows as the tap water you drank tonight, and the steam from your tea and the breath you are breathing now in and out slowly, because you're beginning to rest, because the story and the dark and the quiet are pulling you down gently, the way the deep water pulls, without urgency, without insistence, with only the vast and patient gravity of everything that is deep and dark and full. The octopus does not worry about this, about the flowing and the connecting and the being part of something larger. It simply is part of it, the way a stone in the river is part of the river, the way a cloud is part of the sky, without needing to understand the whole to belong to it. The octopus rests in the dark water, and its blue heart beats, and somewhere far above it the surface of the ocean shimmers with whatever light is left, and it does not look up, because there is nothing up there that it needs right now, nothing that the darkness and the stillness and the slow blue pulse of its own blood cannot provide. You too have everything you need right now. The room around you is quiet, or nearly so. Your body is warm, or nearly so. The day has done what days do, and now it is over, or nearly so. And the thing that remains when the day is over is not nothing. It is something very much like the deep water. Something that holds you without effort. Something that requires no maintenance. Something that was there before the day began and will be there long after you have forgotten the details of this particular evening and this particular voice and these particular words about an octopus tucking its arms beneath itself in the cold dark of the sea. Somewhere in that dark right now, 3 hearts are beating blue. Somewhere, arms that can think are folded into rest, and skin that can see is going slow and quiet, and a creature that carries the whole ocean inside its chemistry is breathing water, gently, the way you are breathing air gently, both of you alive in your respective darks, both of you held by something vast and calm and entirely unhurried, and the distance between you, measured in miles or in the strangeness of your different bodies, feels in this particular moment like no distance at all. The octopus rests, and the water holds it, and the blue blood keeps its faithful circuit through 3 steady hearts, and out beyond the reef, the open ocean is dark and enormous, and full of the kind of quiet that has no beginning and no end, only depth, only the slow and endless turning of something too large to be seen all at once, something you can only feel from the inside, the way you feel sleep arriving now, not as an absence but as a presence. Not as a stopping, but as a continuation into somewhere softer, somewhere the light is blue and distant and everything that needed to be held has finally, gently been set down. And so we leave the octopus now, drifting gently back into the deep, carrying its quiet wisdom through the dark blue waters. Our journey together tonight has come to a soft and peaceful close. If you find yourself still awake, the next chapter waits for you whenever you are ready, like a light left on just for you. But for now, let your thoughts grow still and slow. Good night, dear one. Sleep beautifully.